All right. Here we go, back again on the other side of the coin. All right, we are back again on the other side of the coin. It's a stream from down under with my Aussie brother RJ. 10 p.m. Australian time. I know it's about 1 p.m. UK time. So yeah, this is going to be fun. Hope everyone who's joined in so far and will join throughout the stream and watch it down the track. Hope you enjoy this particular segment of Down Under Stream. A couple of Aussies just talking about football, club that we enjoy a lot. And there's quite a few interesting things to talk about. But before we get into all of that, RJ, how you doing, my man?
Fantastic, Miz. Like you said, a couple of Down Under Blues talking what we talk about best, and that's Chelsea. And needless to say, I'm buzzing after yesterday's result.
Yeah, man. It's as we said off air that the weekend just becomes that much sweeter when Chelsea win. So regardless 100%. Of what's happening all around the world or whatnot, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay what happens around the world, but you still stayed happy when Chelsea wins. RJ, let's get straight into some of these big topics that we want to talk about today. And I want to focus on two major things. Chelsea's front three. Obviously, we saw Havertz, Mason Mount, Pulisic against Crystal Palace, and they were electric that whole match, obviously the first half. And I also want to talk about the counter-pressing and how important that's been under Thomas Tuchel and how much he has focused and how well we've drilled into the counter-pressing. And the likes of Jorginho, Kovacic, and Mason Mount are one of the key instigators to kickstart that counter-pressing, right? But we're going to talk about the front three first. RJ, from your perspective, that front three that you saw against Crystal Palace, albeit the first game that we probably saw that combination. I'm pretty sure that's the first game that we saw that combination. I mean, before we get into the whole conversation of whether this is the best or not, what do you think about that combination against Crystal Palace? What were your thoughts?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Miz, I thought from the get-go, I really loved the intensity. I loved the understanding. I thought the fact that these players till this day haven't had a chance to start from the beginning. Hey Scotty, how you going, buddy? He's my fellow co-host from It's a Football Thing, so he likes to give us a bit of stick. He's an Arsenal fan, so we can't take him too seriously, of course. But
hopefully Arsenal loses today.
Well, it's probably more of an 80-20, isn't it? So good luck to not Arsenal. But in terms of the front three, I thought they were outstanding. They probably should have scored a few more goals amongst them, but yeah. I don't want to be too critical because it was their first time together. But yeah, very promising signs.
No, 100%. Look, it's crazy. I mean, in my review as well, I've had quite a few people say this, and I've said it as well. We probably should have scored 6 or 7, but we can't forget the fact that we still scored 4, which is quite a lot of goals to score in one match. And in the Premier League as well, no teams are walkovers, right? But let's try and dissect each of these individuals and try and work out why this could be the best front three combination. We'll try and compare it with any other ones. Let's look at Pulisic first up, okay? RJ? I think Pulisic is the first probably direct competition for Timo Werner. A lot of people will say, why is Timo getting more minutes than Tammy Abraham? For me, I don't even think Timo is competing against Tammy, or Tammy is competing against Timo, because for me, Timo predominantly plays on the left inside forward. Yeah. There's that odd occasion here and there where he plays as a striker, but that's not the norm. That is the outside chance where we play someone like Liverpool or we play someone like Atletico Madrid and maybe even Porto when they in the second leg will have to come at us. So we could possibly see Timo Werner up front, but generally speaking, under Thomas Tuchel, Timo Werner has been playing in the left inside forward. So for me, Pulisic is the direct competition for that role. Now, the reason why I think Thomas Tuchel is probably going to start preferring a lot more of Pulisic is a few things. One, he's already mentioned Timo Werner has overplayed a lot of matches. He's played too many. He could get burnt out, and we need to watch that because he has played a lot of minutes. Two, if Pulisic is fit, I think he's far more of a potent finisher as opposed to Werner. Werner, yes, he gets into good positions. His movement is great, but he's not been finishing for us, right? And Pulisic, as I said, not just the potent finishing, he has this knack, RJ, of getting into the far post when the crosses are coming in, so he can bang those in. He's now got that mentality. So from that perspective, do you see why Tuchel could start preferring Pulisic as the left inside forward player?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think you touched on some good points, but I think perhaps at a more fundamental level, which is not directly involved in the goal scoring element, is I think at the heart of it, he's a better dribbler. He's someone that's going to drive at defences. His touch is better, admittedly, than Timo Werner, because as we know, he's been often justifiably criticised for his not so sensational touch. So I felt when Christian Pulisic is in peak condition and when he's feeling confident, he's someone that's going to scare the opposition. He's going to get the ball. He's going to run at them. He's going to cause... And even if he doesn't get past them, what he's going to do is he's going to give them something to be concerned about, and he'll attract attention. Whereas I think Timo, when he's in his right natural environment and when he's feeling good, his main attributes are running into space, and when he's playing good, he often is a finisher. But because he's not been in good confidence, he's not finishing, and more often than not, we're versing teams that are deploying a low block. So he's not in his natural habitat to just be able to run into those spaces and take advantage of chasing defence. So I think 100% agree with you. The big caveat is, though, Miz, and we've spoken about this just recently between ourselves, can we rely on Christian Pulisic physically to hold the rigours of week-to-week Premier League matches? And especially not just Premier League, but you've got Champions League and FA Cup. So it's the busy end of the season. Touch wood. What we saw from him the other night, we can replicate. But my sincere concern is that he's someone that until he can do it over a handful of games, it's too risky to just think he's going to be the solution.
100% agreed. And I wanted to bring that topic up as well, because it was only last week, RJ, that we were talking about how, what do we do with Pulisic? Because he had to get himself out in the second half against West Brom when, in honesty, we needed him because he scored that goal and probably he was, one of Thomas Tuchel's trump card to come back into the game against West Brom. But
correct,
it just didn't happen and he had to be taken out. And you're right, RJ. Until Pulisic can prove to us that he can play 5-6 games in a row and not get injured, I guess the notion is still out there that is he still capable of being in the best front three. But I think for the time being, we need to say that with Timo Werner playing so many minutes, perhaps keep allowing someone like Pulisic to keep playing there. Or how do you see this? Obviously, Porto game coming up next, right, RJ?
Yeah.
With the form, you can sort of have to back that. Well, you got to allow someone like Pulisic to play now because 2 goals against who did we play?
Crystal Palace.
2 goals against Crystal Palace and a goal against West Brom as well. Let's not forget he scored a goal against West Brom.
He's in good form.
Do you now stick with him, or do you think, you know what, this could be the situation where I push him too much and he gets that injury again, and then he's shelved away for few more matches? How do you weigh this up? Do you continue with him or you're not?
Well, personally speaking, I think it's thinking about the context of the Porto game. So the context is that we've got a 2-0 lead, an away goals lead against them. And by virtue of having that lead, I dare say that Porto is going to come at us a little bit more because they need to force the issue, more so than in the first leg when it was an even playing field. So because Porto is going to need to have to come out of their comfort zone, even though I thought, to their credit, they pressed us quite well in the first half of the game, they're going to have to, from the front foot, try to seek some goals. So with that in mind, that means that they're going to have some more bodies committed forward, which in turn leads to more space in behind their defence, which again in turn leads to someone that's a more natural, like a Timo Werner, to exploit that sort of option. So I'm thinking to myself, this might be the perfect game to have Timo come in and exploit Porto on the counter. But on the flip side, I also think I don't want to punish Pulisic because he's been in good goal scoring form.
Right.
But I wouldn't look at it, him not starting, as a punishment per se, because I think there's two options. If he doesn't start, he can come on the bench and impact the game and hopefully get on the score sheet again. But I'm also having Man City in the back of my mind as well from an FA Cup semi-final point of view. So I'm just thinking from a difficulty of opposition perspective. City's the more difficult opponent, no doubt, but also we go into this match with a clear 2-goal advantage. So do we really want to have that unnecessary risk, in my opinion, of starting him and him aggravating his hamstring in a game where we weren't chasing the goals from the outset? So that's just my initial reflections on it.
No, man, it's absolutely warranted. What you said makes total sense. We do need to manage because we've got some big games coming up, and we cannot just think about, oh, let's just keep using Pulisic in the Porto game when probably the City game is very, and I was going to read this particular comment which is relates to this, that City game is quite important, and we all know how much Pulisic enjoys playing City from what he did last season. This is a very good comment from Sam Ritter. Pulisic might need to rotate with Cho to ease him. Kai and Cho has good chemistry. 100% agree. You know, we could possibly see, as Ajay said, it may not be punishment. It may not be that he's being dropped. It's more the sense that management of his health and also making sure he gets to play against City, which is going to be just as big as this particular game against Porto. And let's be honest, and I'm not taking anything, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Porto. We do have that 2 away goal. So in essence, if we bottle it from here, we don't deserve to be in the semi-final, right? If we bottle it from here, we don't deserve to be in the semi-final. So we should be able to see through Porto, even though they do have Sergio Oliveira coming back and they have Mehdi Taremi coming back. So they are going to be bolstered with the attack. But in essence, if everyone was fit and the level, if the playing field was level, who's the man that you have in the left inside forward? Is it Pulisic or Timo Werner?
Well, I suppose if you're going on form, it's a no-brainer that Pulisic he's earned his spot now, and if he wants to be the man of the moment, it's hard to say no. But honestly, if I was Tuchel, I would be saying, Christian, I said, you're doing really good at the moment. Look at the context again, where we've got a comfortable lead. We're trying to manage you back into it. Do you feel 110% comfortable for starting here? Because we've got the City game coming up and we think you could be a big threat there. So that's how I'd be framing it if I was to.
In overall essence, forget about the Porto or Manchester City, just in overall essence, Pulisic and Timo Werner, who's your man? Yeah,
based on today's information, it's Pulisic for me. It's a no-brainer at this stage.
Perfect. So for the time being, let's lock in that we both agree that Pulisic is one of the front three that we want.
Yeah.
Let's now talk about Mason Mount as the other inside forward now, because we want to try and get into that. What's the best front three? By the way, we didn't talk about Callum Hudson-Odoi, but I feel like Callum has the choice between either playing in the right wing back or as an inside forward, whether it be on the left side or the right side. I feel like there's too much competition right now in the inside forward roles for him to be considered to be playing there. I think right wing back is probably the spot. So I'm sort of keeping him away out of that conversation of the inside forward or the best Chelsea three at the moment.
It makes sense. I agree.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. He's probably more favoured in the right wing. Okay, let's look at the right inside forward now. Mason Mount and Hakim Ziyech. For me, RJ, Mason Mount's MVP, man. Like, is undroppable. Like, you cannot drop this guy. As much as, and you know this, RJ, I love Hakim Ziyech. And I honestly, sincerely pray that Hakim Ziyech goes out there and becomes a huge success, not just in Chelsea Football Club, but wherever else he goes in life, outside of football as well, that he becomes a success in everything that he does, right? So I've got the emotional attachment, but I feel like Mace just gives a lot more than Hakim at the moment in terms of his energy, the pressing, and this is nothing nothing against Hakim. I think Hakim Ziyech presses well as well. But even Mason Mount's half turn lately, how good is his turn?
He's the half turn prince. If we're thinking of Harry Potter, he'd be the half turn prince. Honestly, he's amazing.
He is blitzing the opposition with his turn. Do you know what I mean? Like, he is leaving them for cold. So is there a case? I mean, is it a straight up Mason Mount wins this? There is no argument. Hakim Ziyech has to just now think about being in the bench, and maybe next season we start the competition. Or how are you seeing this?
Yeah, no, 100%. Look, I'll keep it nice and brief because I think this is the least contentious position in the front three. It's only because MVP it should be now named, rather than most valuable person, it should just be called Mount valuable person, because he is the M in the most valuable person now. But in all seriousness, yeah, I'm a big fan of our Moroccan magician in Ziyech as well. But the reality is the poor bloke's had to overcome some interruptions with his season due to injury and acclimatization. But on the flip side as well, Mason Mount's just going level to level improvement each game. And I've just been impressed with the fact that not only is he being consistently performing at a high level, he's been incrementally improving somehow. So his ceiling so far continues to be pushed into new boundaries. And in short, he's simply undroppable at the moment. The only thing I would but if you wanted to throw a devil's advocate perspective, is the fact that he's got some big games coming up. We want to get the absolute most out of Mason, because an optimal Mason Mount means an optimal Chelsea. And I know that we have a little bit of a break in between, and he didn't play the full games for England. But because each game now is essentially a final, can we use Mason Mount 100% for the full games of each of our remaining fixtures? So if Tuchel did want to think from that perspective, how can we spread the love out a little bit and preserve Mason's energy a little bit? He might look to this game to say, well, we've got the 2-goal cushion. Do we want to run him into the ground now, or do we want to bring him on as an insurance policy if Ziyech can't get the job done if he's given a start? Personally speaking, I think that Mason would want to start this game, and based on the way he's been playing, he deserves every right to be a starter, because as far as I'm concerned, he's the first name on the team sheet.
Yeah, man, I have to agree. He's MVP. For me, Thomas Tuchel, if we were to have Thomas Tuchel in this stream right now, and we were to say, Thomas, who's your first man in the starting lineup? I think he says Mason Mount straight away. He says Mason Mount. The thing about Mason Mount is, RJ, is that he has an engine, man. Like, I feel like it takes something a lot to burn him out. Like, he can, one of those players is capable of playing every 3 days. He's got that engine in him. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But I'm just saying that he's got the engine in him to do that. And the other thing about Mace in recent times under Thomas Tuchel, RJ, is that he's been scoring goals. And he's scoring some big goals, man. Porto, first leg, massive goal. Liverpool, massive goal. Not that long ago, he scored against Sheffield United. He also scored against, can't remember, a few other teams as well. There was a penalty where he scored a goal as well.
The Fulham game, he scored the winning goal against Fulham as well.
Yes. So this is the other thing. Look, Ziyech's trajectory has been upwards in recent times as well under Thomas Tuchel. That key goal against Atletico Madrid, Sheffield United right at the end, ensuring that we get that victory. We were 1-0 up. Could have been 1-0.
At Anfield,
Yeah, Liverpool at Anfield. I think Ziyech, Liverpool at Anfield, just missed that chance. I think it was a good performance, but he missed that chance right in front. But his trajectory is on the upward as well. And it's a shame because he played against West Brom and had to be taken off because of the red card. Or else I think that particular game with Pulisic scoring, I know he didn't have a very good start, Ziyech, but I think he would have grown into the game. But you're right. There's probably no argument in that particular situation now in the right inside forward that Mace probably gets the nod ahead in a general term. I know there could be the odd occasion here and there where you think probably Ziyech's ability is far more suited. But I can't think of any sort of scenarios where you're not going to use Mason Mount. Is that how you think as well? That most scenarios
exactly.
you are using Mason Mount?
Yeah, because I was trying to think of a scenario where I thought, okay, if we did want to, because my perspective for the Porto game, just in general with the front three, was I wanted to consider options in which we could look at reshaping the front three just to preserve that freshness. But I thought to myself, how do you have a scenario where you can't have Mason in a team? And the only sort of place he can obviously drop behind is in the sort of that centre mid area, but that's not his optimal position. He's not in the pivot. That's not where he belongs, at least at this stage in his career. So because of that, surely he has to start. And I feel sorry for Ziyech, but if I was, again, Thomas Tuchel, which I'm clearly not, I'd be saying, Hakim, Mason's the man of the moment. You can see it. We can all see it. He's earned his bread and butter. But what we can do is, depending on how the game and the situation's flowing, we'll hook Mason off at half-time or on the 50th, 60th minute mark. You'll get 30 to 40 minutes to show what you can do, and hopefully you can build a case from there and give us something to think about. But he surely must respect who's in form, and who's in form is Mason Mount. Simple as that.
No, absolutely right. Samara, thank you so much for this comment. Hakim and Mount are totally different type of players. We must understand that Mount is not playing in his natural position. If we get a DM, his position will be changed. He's just helping his team. Look, we are basing this discussion and this stream based on what Thomas Tuchel's doing now. And we completely understand that this may not be the case next season. So
100%.
We completely get that, Samara, that Mace could be in a totally different position next season. You know, if we go back to the 4-3-3, Mace probably goes as one of the attacking eights. So right now we're talking about what things are happening. So that's what the discussion is about. Once again, Declared, thank you so much, my man, for joining. Thank you to almost 40 people that have joined in. Thank you heaps for
some good comments.
Yeah, some really good comments as well. Smash that like button, guys. Helps out the channel a lot. Helps out the video too. So yeah, Declare, thank you heaps, my man, for joining in. So far, RJ, we have locked in Pulisic. We have locked in Mason Mount as part of the best three that Chelsea could possibly have under Thomas Tuchel right now. Yeah?
Yeah.
Let's now talk about the middle. Let's now talk about, I suppose, the striking position, which I think there's going to be heavy discussions about this now. And I can't wait because I want to see your perspective. Because I feel like I need to have a proper discussion as opposed to, football Twitter, argy-bargies that
you'll
go
get
on.
plenty of discussion from me, Miz. You know that.
So, look, RJ, the first thing that I want to ask you is, would you agree that Thomas Tuchel is looking for a certain particular characteristic from his striker, and perhaps he doesn't get that with Giroud completely, and perhaps he doesn't get that with Tammy Abraham completely, and perhaps he doesn't always get that with Timo Werner when he plays in the middle completely as well? That's why we see him more as an inside forward. Do you think that's probably why he's using Kai Havertz now? Because he feels that's the more complete package, what he's looking for up front as a striker, where Kai has the ability to drop deep in midfield, link up play there with the midfielders, has the vision of the pass, has the shooting ability, although he didn't finish a lot of the chances against Crystal Palace, but he's still a goal scorer. Taking aside this season, a lot of people might say, he's only scored one Premier League game, but please look at the Leverkusen stuff as well. I'm talking about in a holistic manner, right?
Yeah.
He can assist goals as well. We've seen what he did for Pulisic. Aerially, he's good as well. So do you think this is probably a reason why Thomas Tuchel hasn't been using Giroud and Tammy that much up front, because he gets a lot more out of Kai Havertz?
Yeah, honestly, I think the use of Kai Havertz is probably for two things. It's first the one you've said, in terms of a message to, in my opinion, a message to the board that we haven't quite got the person in that top position, in that center striking position, that is going to work for me in the long term. And that's why I'm going to have to use a stopgap solution in Kai Havertz. And it's not a ridiculous notion, because he's obviously played in that position before, and quite clearly he looks like he's not out of his depth there. But what I will say to that, and I think this is where the benefit of Tuchel is in terms of his flexibility and his fluidity, is that Havertz today might be the number 9, but tomorrow, depending on who the opposition is, it might be Giroud, it might be Werner, it might be Abraham. So I think the good thing is it's not a set and forget thing with Tuchel, and it's just really another reason why he's probably gone with Havertz is because he's had this time off where he's had the ability to refresh and get his body physically right. Whereas you've got people like Tammy, who's just come back from injury, hasn't had much game time, so he's a little bit in the cold. Timo Werner is obviously confidence is very shot at the moment. And Giroud, because he's obviously not the most agile or mobile person, I think he's the one who's and this is perhaps controversial, but he's the one that probably fits the least outside of Tammy, at least, in terms of what Tuchel demands, because Tuchel demands a very high-octane, high-energetic press and someone that's going to be able to make those runs and use their athleticism, whereas Giroud's obviously a very good target man, a link-up player, and, of course, a great finisher on his day. So I think that's probably why Havertz, at the moment, seems to be like someone he prefers just because, A, the other options aren't quite doing it for me, and B, Havertz can show that he's quite versatile, and I think that what we saw against Crystal Palace vindicates that. And not just against Palace, but before the West Brom game, he had a couple of occasions where he looked very solid in that false 9 or actual 9 spot.
Everton's the game where he looked magnificent in that false 9 scenario. Do you feel, I mean, we've only got a handful of games remaining for the rest of the season, right? And there's so much talk about, why doesn't Tuchel give, Giroud more time or Tammy Abraham more time? So disrespectful for these. Do you feel like Thomas Tuchel's not in the luxury at the moment to do that kind of stuff, that he needs to trust his instinct and go that, look, Kai Havertz is the guy who gives me the total package at the moment of what I want up front. I need to persevere with him. And he said it, that he wasn't happy with the Porto display from Kai Havertz, and he actually said to Kai, you need to do better. And Kai literally came out against Crystal Palace and blitzed things off in the first 30 minutes. Do you feel it's okay from the fan base to target Thomas Tuchel in this point and pinpoint at him and say, but Tammy and Giroud deserves a bit more time? I mean, what are you doing? Do you think it's fair at the time to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. Look, this stuff to me isn't news. Like, in a sense, it's not a news story. To me, this is just another occasion of, what's the saying that goes, the more that things change, the more they stay the same. So even though we've changed a manager or we change players, you're always going to have scenarios where, given that football is a game of opinions, we're not going to agree on every single player that gets selected, who gets dropped, who the manager rotates, blah, blah, blah. So inevitably, if Tuchel goes and picks Werner and Havertz, people are going to say, why doesn't he pick Tammy and Giroud more? And then when Tammy and Giroud are playing, and if they're not scoring, they're going to be like, why aren't you using the big money signings that we've spent all this money on in the summer? So it's from Tuchel's point of view, it's a lose-lose outcome. And if I'm Thomas Tuchel, again, I'm not. It's just a thing where it's like in one ear, out the other, because I have a job to do at the end of the day. My contract is 18 months. The club told me I need results, so I'm going to trust my gut instincts. So not for anything, we all have a connection to the club, and we all have players that we choose to affiliate more with closely. But what I would urge is to say that it's good to have that fan-player connection, but ultimately we've got to understand that there's only a set amount of players that can be picked at any given situation, and the person at the helm, the manager, has to make the decisions based on the best available set of information at hand. And that's not just in the 90 minutes. It's in the week-to-week, day-to-day training. So we might be good coaches and managers on Twitter, etc. But because we don't see the full story, we're not in the best position to make those kinds of calls. So I think it's a little bit harsh. But again, it's a game of opinions, and I'm sure Thomas Tuchel doesn't take it to heart. So I don't take it to heart either.
No, 100%, man. I mean, I'm so glad how transparent Thomas Tuchel has been. And this comment here, Andrew Liu, also goes in with our conversation. If there was 5 subs in the Prem, Giroud would be starting more, in my opinion, because right now, if you start him, you're almost banking a sub to take him off. 100%. Andrew, once again, thank you for joining the live stream,
he's good.
providing that comment. And you know what, RJ? Thomas Tuchel said that it's very difficult because you can literally make 2 subs, and the last one you sort of hold because
it's an insurance policy.
It's an insurance policy because you don't know what's going to happen. There could be an injury, there could be whatever, right? Red card and whatnot, and you need to change things up. So it's really just 2 positions, 2 spots that you're banking on to make substitutions. So it's very difficult when you have, and I think Thomas Tuchel said, when you have a 25-man squad and you got to bring it down to 18. It's tough. It's very, very tough. So,
and our squad depth, Miz, our squad depth, just on that point, just to add to the difficulty layer for Tuchel, it's with all due respect to some of the other teams in the Premier League, picking from your team, you know who your established stars are. We've got a very high quality depth and bench. So trying to pick your players and which ones you want to rotate isn't so easy because there's going to be a handful of, basically players that would walk into most 11s that aren't going to get picked, and it's very hard to exclude them. So yeah, it's a difficult one for Tuchel each week to say, I'm going to pick X, Y, and Z, but A and B, C, you miss out, even though A, B, and C, again, could probably walk into most teams.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. And, once again, this is a very good comment here from Declared. Also, Kai can play across the front 3, which our front 3 momentarily changed positions during the game, which is so true. Because with Kai Havertz, RJ, you've seen against what he did against Everton, bits and pieces. We did the watch along with Leeds and how prolific he was in that. Even though we didn't score, it was 0-0, but Kai Havertz was good. And against Crystal Palace, RJ, you saw when Kai plays in that middle position, he has the freedom to roam around and he has the know-how to know where to go. You know what I mean? Like when Callum is so high up, Kai drifts to the left, allowing Mace to come into the more central position. And then, when Chile is going wide, Kai then comes more to the right. Like he's got that know-how of drifting nicely, free laterally, and then moving into the midfield.
He's like a hybrid, isn't he? To me, I was just thinking about with Kai because I just thought, you mentioned Tuchel before. He probably looks at Giroud, Werner, and Tammy and says they're not quite fitting exactly what I'm doing. But with Kai, it's almost like cherry picking. So Kai has a bit of a synergy with Timo in the sense of, for all of Timo's criticisms of his poor finishing this season, which has been unfortunate because I still think he has the opportunity to redeem himself, I think he has a lot of similarities in the sense of Timo has been making himself find good positions. And I feel like Kai Havertz has been finding good positions. But on the flip side, Olivier Giroud is someone that's got a really majestic touch and hold-up play and is very composed. And I think Kai Havertz also has similar attributes. So it's almost like Kai Havertz has got a little bit of the best of both worlds from both Timo Werner and Olivier Giroud, but just obviously not the finished product.
Yeah, and this is what I was saying, RJ, that we need to understand why Thomas Tuchel is preferring Kai over Giroud and Tammy Abraham for that striking role, because we've already eliminated Timo because Timo predominantly plays as an inside forward. It's just that odd time he may play up front if the opposition has a high line. So we need to really understand why Kai is being deployed there. And it's what you said, RJ, and this comment as well. Kai has the best of worlds from both of these players, and he has a better link up with whoever is around them. By the way, RJ, I'm not sure if you saw the review. I had Ryan yesterday in my review, and he blew my mind. I need to tweet what he said in the review. What he said, and I need to bring him back in my channel again because it was unbelievable, his tactical knowledge. RJ, he said that Thomas Tuchel picks teams not based on just individual facets. He picks teams based on who can get the best holistically out of the team. So
the collective,
as a collective, have you noticed that Thomas Tuchel has been nominated for Manager of the Month, but not a single Chelsea player has been nominated for Player of the Month? Have you
Well,
noticed?
it's only Christensen, I think, has been one of the players, but
Oh,
you're right. But you're 100%, and I agree with Ryan. It's all about, there's probably one of those players that don't get picked that on individual face-to-face battles, they probably trump the overall category, but then it's those intangibles that help benefit the collective. So, yeah, I agree with Ryan.
100%. And Ryan was saying that Thomas Tuchel's so smart. He's looking at it as a holistic. Which player gives me the best ability to bring the rest of the team together? Which player can gel everyone together? It's not about, a lot of people throw the notion, oh, but Tammy Abraham's the top scorer for Chelsea Football Club with 6 goals in the Premier League. It's not about the top goal scorer. It's about what does Tammy do to ensure that Mace can have a great game, or Pulisic can have a great game, or Jorginho and Kovacic are more involved in the game. It's that holistic view. It's not just the one individual. So I feel like this is the reason why Kai Havertz is getting the nod at the moment, is that he brings everyone together, and we saw the fluidity in against Crystal Palace. Once again, really good commentary from Dens. Kai is the answer for us in the 9 position. Next season we will want Haaland, but where does that leave Kai? We'll have another situation like Frank had, where we don't know where to use this card. I'm just going to quickly answer this and move on to the next side of this stream. I feel like Haaland, if he is coming through, first of all, I'm not really sure if Haaland... I'm starting to think more and more he's going to go to Man City, man. I'm not really sure whether... Yeah, I know it's a sad story, but I think more and more I get the feeling that he's going to go to Man City. But let's just say, for argument's sake, that he does come to Chelsea. I feel like he'll be the lone striker, and Kai Havertz will be right behind him. So he'll be the 10 behind him. So they'll play in tandem. And we will need to change formation. I feel like we will need to swap to a 4-2-3-1. So you play with the wingers and the man behind Haaland. So I think that could be an option. I don't really see how we play 3 at the back and fit Haaland and Kai Havertz, which becomes a bit tricky, because Havertz has mentioned, even post-match, RJ, I'm not sure if he saw the tweet quotes, he said that at the moment he feels the false line position is probably the best position for him, because he gets to roam around freely. He likes the freedom to go wherever he wants to go. So, I'm not entirely sure if Haaland becomes the striker, whether he'll like being an inside forward, because as an inside forward, you're then penciled down in a particular area. Do you know what I mean? So if you're left inside forward, then you're generally left inside forward. If you're right inside forward, you're generally right inside forward. Yeah, you can swap around with your partner, sometimes and switch the flanks, but you don't have the freedom to just roam around wherever you want to roam around, as what he's doing as a false line. So a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about the counter-pressing, RJ. Before we do that, by the way, can we agree that Kai Havertz, Pulisic, and Mason Mount probably the best front 3 under Thomas Tuchel, albeit we've only seen them once so far playing, but do you feel like that gives a complete package for Thomas Tuchel in a predominant sense? Obviously, there might be the odd change here and there that we need to do.
Yeah, I think they're a priority 3, or the preferred starting front 3, despite versing a very underwhelming Crystal Palace. It's just, at the end of the day, you can only play what's in front of you. And what they played in front of them, they absolutely annihilated Palace. Let's make no mistake, they're a very pragmatic team who sit back and frustrate teams, and that's what I predicted in my prediction space. But we came out and blew them off the park, and the front 3 were pivotal to that. And also the Jovic midfield pairing helped a lot as well. But yeah, that front 3, Miz, to me, would be the preferred one, purely because of what we saw, but also because of the fact in how underwhelming the other alternatives are at the moment. If they were to pick up their game, I'm open for discussion and changing that front 3. But yeah, we base off what we see.
100% agreed, RJ. And as we've already mentioned, holistically, those 3 brings the whole team together more. And as you said, RJ, they cover all the other underwhelming sort of lackings all the other options have. But yeah, the other options, if they can manage to prove us wrong, more than happy to change this up. RJ, let's talk about the counter-pressing now, because this is a very, very important topic that it doesn't get talked about much in social media. I'm trying to tweet as much as possible about this, because people are forgetting that we have been boxing certain oppositions. Like, you look at what we did against Crystal Palace for the first 45 minutes, RJ, we've literally had a foot on their throat and suffocated them. We lost the ball, we won the ball back. We lost the ball, we won the ball back. We've literally suffocated them. And I feel like a lot of people are not appreciating certain members for this particular counter press. And I think Jorginho and Kovacic and Mason Mount as well. Mason Mount is probably the initial instigator to start the defense from the beginning. But Jorginho and Kovacic, when we are playing with a high line and all the players are pushing high, as soon as we lose the ball, Jorginho and Kovacic are winning the ball back straight away, RJ. How important is that? And a lot of people are not praising about these two players and looking at this aspect.
Yeah, no, first of all, it's absolutely fundamental. And why is it fundamental? Because not only do we, thank you, great stuff, thank you, Sadiq, but why it's fundamental is because we know we're going to dominate the play. We know we're going to dominate both possession. We know we're going to dominate territory. So what we've got to do is not just, people just think it's about just trying to win the ball back, but it's the psychological damage that it does to the opposition. And what I mean by that is when you box them in, like we saw against Palace, and you use the word suffocate, which I think is a very good descriptive word for it, it's about sucking the life out of them into thinking, okay, we can't play our way out of this. We're just going to hoof the ball forward. Inevitably, they're going to turn over, because it's all about playing the percentages, you see. So every time you lose the ball, Mount, Kovacic, Jorginho, whoever's pushing forward to try to win that ball back, which those three players instigated more often than not, the high percentage option is that the team is just going to kick the ball forward, and then it's going to go back to Rudiger or to Zuma or to Azpilicueta, and guess what? The next wave of a Chelsea attack is going to come back in their face. So it's relentless waves and waves of attack. So in terms of how important is it, it's absolutely fundamental, because it just shows the opposition that from a psychological standpoint, we don't want them to play their game. We don't want them to get a situation where they're going to feel like, okay, Chelsea's going to let us breathe for 5 minutes. It's our turn to establish our foothold in the game. No. We lose the ball, we're going to get it back. And if you have the ball, we're just going to force it out back to where we start, and we'll kick off again. So, yeah, absolutely. And those two, the Jovic pairing, I just want to say very quickly, I've been critical over them over the last week, because I thought their performances against West Brom, particularly West Brom, and again, and to a lesser extent for patches during the Porto game, I thought, we know they're quality players. We respect their intelligence, their cohesion. They've been really good under Tuchel, but that week there, you have to be honest, they weren't at their best. And like everybody else, they deserve criticism. But to their credit, they responded massively against Palace. And even though we talk about the front three, which were amazing, to me, the low-key heroes of that game were those two, because they were instrumental, both on and off the ball.
100%, RJ. And look, I'm not going to shy away. That West Brom game, Kovacic and Jorginho, especially Jorginho, they were poor. Jorginho was poor, and I'm pretty sure Jorginho will be the first one to put his hand up and say, I was definitely poor. And he was probably one of the main reasons why Thiago Silva got red carded. Do you know what I mean? So we know that. And against Porto as well, you're right, RJ. The first 20, 25 minutes, we were getting done, and there was no midfield. But testament to that, to them as well, RJ, that they came back after the 25 minutes, and I think Jorginho ended up getting the man of the match against Porto. I'm not really sure how that happened, but look, it is what it is.
He played an assist for Mount's goal. Yeah,
they did turn it around. Jorginho and Kovacic were much better after the 25 minutes, and in the second half, they did definitely control it. And against Crystal Palace, and this is the thing, I don't understand, RJ, why sometimes in our fan base, people will spend time, RJ, and I kid you not, I need to say this, and I'll get to all the comments, guys. First of all, 55 people logged in, listening to two Aussies down under, talking about football. I'm loving it. Thank you so much, guys, for all your support. I will get to that super chat as well from Class FCFC. Thank you so much for that. But yeah, we do appreciate that. Please smash the like button if you're enjoying the show right now. So, RJ, I need to say this. when Declan Rice is playing for West Ham, it's not even a Chelsea game. You will see so many Chelsea fans typing about Declan Rice and how magnificent he is and whatnot and so on and so forth. I don't care. Declan Rice is a fantastic player and I get that. But when Jorginho puts on a performance like he did against Crystal Palace, don't you think that it's at least at your best interest to write 2 lines about Jorginho and back this player because he's dropped a very good game? Don't you think it warrants that? I mean, this is where my issue comes into play, that I don't understand why we cannot seem to appreciate these players. Look, are these players going to win us a title next season? I don't know, RJ. Maybe we need a different type of profile for next season. But right now, under Thomas Tuchel, these 2 players are being used perfectly and they deserve a lot of praise. Under Lampard, they weren't getting used properly. And I was the first one to say, RJ, they should not have been used and they were not the right player for Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard needed someone like Declan Rice. So from your perspective, man, do you feel the fan base needs to really get behind Jorginho and Kovacic a lot more right now with the performances they've been providing?
Yeah, well, I think your point is very relevant, but I'd extend it to it should be applied across the board. And what I mean is whoever's been picked and is doing a job. So let's look at it transactionally, game to game. If someone's playing good in that game, in my humble opinion, the commentary from our fans should be consistent with that. If it's Zuma, who's playing a good game, but he didn't play good the last game, your comment could be something along the lines of, Zuma's played a good game this one. I'm not sure if he's my starting centre-back, but credit to Kurt, great game. Or same thing with Jorginho, Kovacic, whatever. So I'm not sure if it's helpful for when people make comments about prospective players joining our club, especially when a player in that position is playing good. Because if I'm a fan, the most important thing, apart from us winning, is from now to the end of the season, we should all be on board with Tuchel and whoever's wearing the badge on the day. Because at the end of the day, they're the players that we have at our disposal that are tasked with getting the job done and getting those objectives ticked off the list. You know, I like Declan Rice. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want him to join. But guess what? Declan Rice is a West Ham player. He's not going to help me get top 4. He's not going to help Chelsea win the Champions League or FA Cup this season.
He's going to help West Ham to get top 4.
Yeah, well, look, if Declan's a good enough guy, what he should do is help West Ham tank their season for us, and then maybe we can promote him some more. But no, but in all seriousness, you know what I mean? Like, we should really all be getting behind who's currently available, because not getting behind them isn't going to help our situation for this season. And that's how I'm looking at things, taking it game by game. So I don't know. We're all different. We all have our opinions, but for me, it's all about respecting those that wear the badge and play 100% and hopefully deliver a good game for us.
No, I love it. I love it. Thompson Jones, the counter pressing was so good in the first half. Literally, as soon as we lost the ball, 5 people literally boxed and surrounded the opponent. This forced the opponent into mistakes. Bang on Thompson Jones. Once again, 100%. I've said it many times, Thompson Jones, honestly, you need to be part of the panel. We need to have you in the show sometime very soon if you're keen. It's true. We've suffocated them, RJ. And the 5 people that Thompson Jones is talking about here, I kid you not, 3 of them is Jorginho, Kovacic, and Mason Mount out of that 5. So a lot of people miss that. Let's now look into this super chat. Class CFC, thank you so much for your super chat. Honestly, appreciate it a lot. Helps out the channel a lot. Chelsea does not play with false 9. We play with false 8, Mason Mount, and false 10, Pulisic, Havertz, Werner. German Spanish tactics formation, false 9 is not part of our formation. That's a very interesting take. Let me just try and understand this. Chelsea does not play with false 9. We play with false 8, Mason Mount, and false 10, Pulisic and Havertz.
So,
Werner. So is he talking about how the formation changes, that Callum Hudson-Odoi really becomes a winger and he's not really a wing back, and that ensures that Mason Mount's probably a false 8, and then you have the Pulisic, Havertz, and Werners as false 10s?
That's how I think. So I think how I sort of take that is that it's perceived that Kai is playing in that more traditional striking position because he's hovering in and around that spot more often. Whereas, and I can understand the logic here is that we did see a lot of Pulisic and Mason occupying those central positions. But I suppose Classic FC, how I'd look at it is rather than getting super fixated on the technical structural language around the false 9, false 8, false 10, I think the one commonality that hopefully we can agree on is the fact that in that attacking phase, in the top end of town, there's so much fluidity that it's quite hard for the opposition to really pinpoint, Mason Mount playing on the right-sided forward when quite clearly we saw many times he's playing in the middle, he's dropping back even to an essential box-to-box midfielder. So I think that's very much part of Tuchel's tactic is that we're going to keep that fluidity up top, and that's going to in turn hopefully confuse the opposition, pulling them out of position and opening up spaces for our wing backs to sort of tuck in behind them if they're getting their wires crossed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Classic CFC, honestly, you've given us an absolute corker, something to think about, but it kind of makes sense what you're saying. RJ, how important is it, I suppose, for the remainder of the Premier League matches at least, and also to an extent the Champions League and the FA Cup games, but those are more of the one-off sort of scenarios. But in the Premier League, we're going to come across many teams that sit deep. That counter-pressing is very important facet of the game where, as you said, every time Palace wanted to sort of come out of danger, they just couldn't. They suffocated, they panicked, and they thought about hoofing the ball back. How important is it? I know we've always talked about that with the low blocks. It's very important to have creative players in order to open them, which is fine. Absolutely can understand that we need to have that kind of player as well. But it's also equally important in my perspective to have players that are so good with the counter attack, because what do the low blocks generally look at? They look to counter, right? So they bring you in, they suck you in, and then they try and break quick. But if we can counter press and get them back quickly, we can create that chaos with them and really
the transition risk. That's right.
Exactly, and really box them in and apply the pressure. So do you think that counter pressing is just as important for the low blocks as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think again for the most teams we play in the Premier League, as we've seen not just under Tuchel but under Lampard, is that we have struggled to break down these very resolute and organised defences, if you want to call it that. So I think for us, the counter press becomes that ever more important, just because we don't want to. The main problem or issue under Lampard was that transition risk I mentioned, in the sense that once we lost the ball, we gave that narrow window of opportunity for those low block teams to find their outlets, and those outlets were the problem. Whereas under Tuchel, we're trying to nullify that risk by applying the counter press to not allow them that small window of opportunity to hit us on the break. So true. That's to me, it becomes so important. And again, the more and more we successfully, and what I'll say about the counter press quickly is it's only as effective as how much we collectively apply it. In other words, it doesn't work if only Mason Mount's the only one chasing, because they're just going to pass it around him. And guess what? We've just lost a player and we've created a disadvantage numerically. So if we successfully apply that counter press, and the more and more we frustrate the opposition into making mistakes in trying to hoof the ball over the top or try to be clever and try to play their way short, and we find them out, it's going to break them. It'll psychologically break them down to the point where even if we do give them an opportunity in later aspects of the game, because of the amount of times we've broken their spirit, they're not going to be as sharp and clever to instinctively click on the counter because of that bad experience that we just are relentless. So yeah, in short, very fundamental against low block teams.
So well said, Aj. I love how you said that. It's fundamental to breaking them down, and then mentally it affects them. And this is the thing, RJ, a lot of the fan base don't understand how much the mental side of thing affects the situation as well. I'm pretty sure Crystal Palace, after the first 15 minutes, the way we were going at them, they were rattled. They were absolutely rattled. And being rattled, the goals were the consequences of that. Do you know what I mean? Like, these goals did not just materialize out of thin air. It materialized because of that rattling, because of us penetrating them and us absolutely destroying them mentally. And that's why these goals came in the way they came in, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I also like the point that you said, RJ, how we are playing a style of football under Thomas Tuchel where we think about the risk as well. So we have the ball and we're attacking, but we are also aware that if we don't have the ball, what needs to happen? And do you feel like this has been one of the biggest distinct differences from what under Frank Lampard, where when we lost the ball, our pressing was all over the place, there was no proper system, and we looked in disarray. Whereas now, when we lose the ball, besides take away the West Brom, I don't want to look into the West Brom. That was just an anomaly.
It's an outlier. Yeah.
It's an outlier. Now, when we lose the ball, I feel like every single player knows what they're doing. They know the risk behind losing the ball, and they want to win it back so quickly. Do you feel like that's one of the biggest distinct differences that Tuchel has made since coming back, since taking the reins in Chelsea?
Yeah, I think it's just quick. I think it's two elements. So firstly, I think it's just that when we do lose the ball, so I very much see a similarity in Tuchel and Lampard in the sense of we dominated both the ball, possession and territory, but the key two differences are, firstly, when we do lose the ball, I see a lot more cohesion in the press to win the ball back. So like I mentioned, the example with, under Lampard, what I often saw was that it would be one or two players that were trying to regain the ball. But what I'm seeing now under Tuchel is you're getting, as Thompson said before, 5 or 6 players pouncing and therefore increasing the likelihood of a mistake being forced. But secondly, I think it's a structural adjustment that's been made with the 3 at the back that helps nullify that risk. So we've got another body in defence. And look, the trade-off there is having that extra body in defence. You could argue it does hinder or somewhat limit the amount of attacking creativity, but I think now we're starting to work out that it's not necessarily a hindrance once we start to develop that chemistry and get the right player profile that's going to benefit the collective, like Ryan said on your stream yesterday. So I think they're the two key differences.
No, 100%, man. Honestly, RJ, I've had an absolute ball talking about all sorts of stuff today. I hope the live chat, you guys have enjoyed what we had to say. Please smash the like button. We've got over 60 people. We've got 41 likes. Let's get it to at least 60 likes right now if you can help us.
Yes.
If you've enjoyed the show as well. So, smash that like button. But RJ, my man, honestly, had a really good conversation. Before we go, guys, please check out RJ's all of the socials in the description. RJ, my man, what can we expect? Where can we see you in the next few days?
Well, from my perspective, Miz, I'm a busy Chelsea fan, so I do a few bits and pieces for the Chelsea content creating community. So for those who are unaware of what I do try to produce, I'm a writer and editor for the Chelsea Social, who, like myself, we write some articles. I also edit them, but we also produce a lot of media graphics and a few watch-alongs and other things, just like quality that Miz produces. But I also co-host 2 podcasts, one being an Australian-related one called It's a Football Thing, and that talks about all things English Premier League with an Arsenal, Manchester United fan and myself, but we talk about all things Premier League and beyond. And secondly, I co-host a Chelsea-specific podcast called The Balanced Blues Brothers. So check us out on Twitter or the socials, and hopefully you can find me there. So busy boy this week, Miz.
Nice, man. You know what? I've had such a good conversation that I feel like maybe we need to think about making this as a weekly or something get together, because I feel like the live chat has really enjoyed this as well. So guys. Look, we're going to leave now. Enjoy the rest of the weekend and enjoy the rest of the Premier League matches. Hopefully the results go our way. And until next time, guys, see ya.